What's going on, football fam? My name is Dave Sarner, and welcome to another edition of the Rise and Fall Fantasy Football Show. This is your Week 10 edition. Now, on today's episode, guys, we're going to be doing things a little differently. As we've always done, we've been kind of testing things here or there. But today, I think we have the best treat for you. We're going to be doing our rankings, position by position, breaking everything down, my official rankings for the week. We're going to have DraftKings prices. We're going to have average points per game per player. We're going to be talking about the matchups, if it's going up against a good defense or bad defense. And we're going to break all of that down for every position here in 4 different episodes. So we want to make this as convenient and as easy as possible, guys. Both the link to my companion that has the full breakdown of the rankings are going to be available in the description below, as well as rankings overall with the timestamps below that. So with all that being said, guys, I did want to also point out, if you see in the companion green, red, and black, those are the colors of your rankings, your top 10, your bottom 10, your middle of the pack rankings for that position. That's not from DraftKings. That's the one thing that we did take from Yahoo. Reason being is because they take the average per game in Yahoo, which is a lot more accurate than the actual totality of the points given up and so forth, because of bye weeks. So as long as there is bye weeks, as long as there's teams behind one game and ahead one game, we're going to try to go with the averages first. We may transition to total points down the line when bye weeks are done. But for right now, we take the averages from that. Everything else is essentially taken from DraftKings. The rankings and the positioning themselves, that's mine. That's purely mine. So with all that being said, guys, enjoy the episode this week. If there's any specific roster decisions or contemplations that you guys have and you need answers for, just drop a comment down in the section below and we'll get back to you. With all that being said, guys, enjoy the episodes for Week 10. Alrighty, so let's get started here with the beginning of the quarterback rankings. All right, so this is the quarterback episode. We're going to start with the top 10 guys, right? Go with those segments first here, and then essentially move down the line. I'm going to go into team rankings and so forth for these guys as well, so don't worry about that. We'll still kind of incorporate that into the show. With that being said, guys, let's get into the quarterback rankings here for Week 10. Now, we're going to start off with our number 1 guy on the board here, and that's Kyler Murray. Buffalo is going into Arizona, guys. They are going to be playing the Buffalo Bills in Arizona, so they host them. It's a 4 o'clock window game, but listen, this should have a lot of points in it. Kyler Murray has been playing extremely well. I mean, let's be real here. When we look at the overall season total for quarterbacks, I think he's up there. I think he's probably one of the top 2. He is. He's behind Patrick Mahomes right now by about 4 points, and he's outscoring Russell Wilson in terms of fantasy points right now. 543 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground. That is just really spectacular if you think about it. So going to the rankings now, you look at the other side of things. Well, Buffalo is pretty decent in a couple areas. They're really good against the wide receivers. Outside of that, guys, not the best rankings in the world. All right, so they're 14th against quarterbacks, so giving up the 14th most points. They're 25th against wide receivers, so not their top. I think they're top 10 in the least amount of points given. Right, 16th to wide receivers, or I'm sorry, 16th to running backs rather. And then 5th to tight ends. So Buffalo running backs, let's see here. They're giving up about 101 yards a game, a little over that, a touchdown a game, and 4 receptions for about 35 yards for about 21 points, 22 points total, it seems like, overall for that. So that's interesting because ironically enough, that's the same exact number, or at least around the same number, that the Arizona Cardinals give up in that rushing attack. So that's good news for Kyler Murray because let's be real, Kenyon Drake, Chase Edmonds, even when Chase had the job to himself last week, didn't exactly wow anyone with his, his premium touches that he got. Kyler Murray is the primary running back in this offense, and 500 yards, 8 touchdowns. That should tell you something in a game that should be a shootout against Josh Allen and company. So he's easily going to be our number 1 quarterback of the week. Moving on to the number 2 on our list, Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, the matchup here against Jacksonville, Jake Luton. I think it's Jake Luton. But going back to Aaron Rodgers here, he's getting Allen Lazard back. Marquez Valdes-Scantling stepping up. Jay Sternberger has gotten into the mix. You have Aaron Jones back healthy. Jamal Williams back from COVID. There's no reason to believe that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to have a great day, even without Tonyan. He's not exactly getting the targets. And I think that if Tonyan doesn't go, I think Jay Sternberger is not a bad option here. I do expect Aaron Rodgers to ball in this game. I do expect the defense to play pretty well, but just note that Jair Alexander is out. So I think, if anything, that can make it even more of a shootout, which is a good thing. That's a good thing that he's out in a way for Aaron Rodgers owners. If you guys haven't noticed throughout the year, we've seen Aaron Rodgers and that team, whether they are up by a lot or down by a lot, outside of divisional games. All right, I'll just note last time against Minnesota, they didn't take the foot off the gas then, but they usually do. And so we've seen them do that. So this could be one of those games where if they got ahead really, embarrassingly quick and, they were winning, it could be one of those things where like, oh, we'll kind of, just run it with Jamal Williams or something. So I think Jair Alexander being out gives this game a little bit more flavor, gives it a little bit more boom potential. If they can get something going, and try to match Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if they will. Jake Luton, if he could do it, kudos to the kid. But regardless, it's a good situation for Aaron Rodgers. And, listen, Jacksonville's giving up the third most points to quarterbacks. You're not going to not start Aaron Rodgers, right? But just an idea here, they're giving up around 285 yards on average, 2 touchdowns, okay, and 27 rushing yards, about 22.5 fantasy points to quarterbacks. That's really bad considering that others are like 250 and about a touchdown and a half. I mean, he's guaranteed almost, if he stays healthy, nothing happens to him, to get a minimum of 2 touchdowns in this game. So that's definitely worthy of number 2 status on this list. No doubt about it here. He's 7,900 on DraftKings. By the way, Kyler Murray's 8,000, so he's the highest guy on there. If I had to pick between the two of them guys, I'd probably would go with... I would probably go with Kyler Murray, even though if you're going to spend the $100, you might as well go Kyler Murray. Although if you did want to, stack up Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't be mad at that either. So I wouldn't blame you for that. I would probably do Aaron Rodgers first in DFS, but Kyler's my number 1 on the board, no doubt about it. Number 3, Josh Allen. Same matchup here against the Arizona Cardinals. Like we said, I expect it to be a shootout here. Going back to the rankings here for the Buffalo Bills and the Arizona Cardinals, the Cardinals are letting up the 17th most points to quarterbacks, about 18.9. So very similar for both sides. Both guys can run, although Kyler Murray has been the guy that's actually done it more this year. But both guys can do it. So don't be surprised that Josh Allen can somehow pull one of those out of the hat. He seems to be doing it a little bit more lately. I don't know if I'm being accurate when I say that, but let me just see something here. They don't show the rushing yards. Okay. That's okay. But either way, Josh Allen's coming off a really, really nice week against a really bad defense. This defense is a little bit better, but it's not great. 46 points last week in, basically these full point PPR type leagues, 415 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's what you want to see. That's what we saw at the beginning of the year against Miami and Los Angeles, in New York Jets early on. Now they get the Cardinals. They go into a bye this week, so he wants to probably go on a strong note before they come out and play the Chargers. So I do expect them to come out hard and play hard. I really do. Actually, I kind of like the Buffalo Bills in this matchup here. I kind of want to lean towards them, even though I love Kyler. I just think I think they'll be able to get something done here today, or on Sunday rather. So going back to the rankings here, I have Josh Allen at number 3, 7,500 on DraftKings. He's probably the best value, I would say, out of the top 3 if you wanted to save yourself $500, $400. Russell Wilson, I have number 4, guys. Tough matchup, no doubt about it. Los Angeles Rams are really, really good, guys. They are the 31st or the second best defense against quarterbacks, only letting up a 217 passing yards and really not a lot of rushing yards at all. 14.79 points, the average of what the Los Angeles Rams is letting up to quarterbacks. However, guys, let's take a look real quick. Let's dive deeper into this and see who they played the last couple of weeks. Well, they had Tua. Okay. Yeah. They had Tua in his first start. Okay. They had Nick Foles the week before that. Okay. Right. Jimmy Garoppolo had 23 points. Kyle Allen the week before. Nice. Daniel Jones. Ooh, goody. Josh Allen, 31 points. 12.3 points for Carson Wentz early in the season. Week 2. Remember all the injuries then? And Dak Prescott, 17 in week 1. Did you guys just hear the list that I just posted off here, right? I'm inclined to move Russell Wilson up because let's see, the only legitimate threat that I see outside of Wentz that was going through a lot of injuries and struggles during that week 2, stout, there was like 80 people out on their team, is Josh Allen, 31 points in week 3. Garoppolo, the only other decent quarterback I see, because you have Jones, Kyle Allen, Nick Foles, and Tua in his rookie start. So if you were concerned about Russell Wilson's status in this game in terms of, well, not status, but if you're concerned with the matchup, don't be. He is at number 4. I'm doing that cautiously because I do like the Rams defense and I respect them. But in a divisional game here, Russell Wilson, the Rams haven't exactly played the best of the best in quarterbacks right now. So, and when they did, they kind of got shredded up by at least one or two of those guys. And I'm not even going to sit here and tell you Jimmy Garoppolo is good, but he was one of the two guys. So no problem starting him at number 4. You don't worry about that kind of thing. Deshaun Watson at number 5 going into Cleveland. Cleveland coming off the bye. Deshaun Watson, man, has been pretty damn consistent right now. I've actually been really impressed with Deshaun Watson. I really have been. I did not expect him to be playing as well as he has. He's last, let's see, since week 4 or since week 3, he's had 20 plus points. Week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7. The bye, he comes back week 9. All right. He's had 2+ touchdowns every week since week 3. He's only had multiple interceptions one of those games, and he only had a pick in another one of those games. In the last 3 games for Deshaun Watson, he has 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a little over 900 yards passing. I like that. I mean, he's been good. Will Fuller has been really solid. So as long as those guys are healthy and that team seems to be feeling it a little bit more now, you're going up against Cleveland, who's given up the 10th most points to quarterbacks. 20 points overall per game as on average is what they're giving up right now. That's the reason why they're top 10. They're giving up 281 yards. So a lot of passing yards are there for Deshaun Watson. Oh, and by the way, they don't give up a lot of running yards, but they give up a decent amount to that position. Now, they also give up a lot of points to receivers here. They're top 5 in giving up the most points to wide receivers. So Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, even Randall Cobb, I have a little higher in my rankings this week. And that's why I love Deshaun Watson. It's really hard to take, I feel like you could really mix and match any of these top 5 and you'll be okay. Like if you're choosing between Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, and Deshaun Watson, you're fine. Okay, you're fine. I think all of them are going to play well. Yes, even Russell Wilson in a tough matchup. Like we said, they haven't really played anyone that great. In fact, they've actually played some of the bottom barrel quarterbacks in the entire league right now, or guys in very weird situations. Kyle Allen in his first start. Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones. But Tua Tagovailoa, as that other guy. So I don't mind if you go with any of those guys. And if you ask me who should I go with these guys, I'm going to tell you go with any one of them. Now, if you're going to go DraftKings, I like Deshaun Watson. 6,900. He's 1,100 cheaper than Kyler Murray. I love the matchup. 7,100 for Lamar Jackson. He's definitely better than that. And then you get some of the other tiers where 6,600 Justin Herbert against Miami. Don't love that matchup. I mean, I don't hate it now, but we'll get into him. He's kind of the next tier up here. So in that top 5, guys, just to recap, number 1, Kyler Murray. Number 2, Aaron Rodgers. Number 3, Josh Allen. Number 4, Russell Wilson. Number 5, Deshaun Watson. Now, 6 through 10, we have Lamar Jackson at number 6 here. They play New England Patriots. There's a reason why they are, he's down here a little bit. New England has been pretty good against quarterbacks, guys, letting up only 14.5 fantasy points to quarterbacks. But it is a running quarterback, and that is their weakest area. New England is 13th against running backs, letting up 113 yards a game. So this is kind of one of those things where I'm just kind of keeping it honest right now. He hasn't been playing well enough for me to want to move him up a little bit. Let's be real here. Last couple of weeks, he's been, Lamar's been okay. And I say okay, I'm kind of giving him the benefit there for you Lamar fans. But reality is this situation, this is actually a deceivingly good matchup for Lamar Jackson this week. It looks like it's a bad matchup for any other quarterback. But because it's Lamar Jackson, this is actually a good matchup and is actually tailors to his strengths as a runner. And I think he might be able to get some things done in this game if he's healthy enough. So I think he'll be okay for you this week. I think he bounces back in a tough matchup here. Even though I have him at number 6, I have him a tier down just because right now it's hard for me to trust him over these other 5 who have been kind of pretty much lights out all year outside of Josh Allen, right? Justin Herbert, number 7. This has nothing to do with him. He's phenomenal, and if you have him, don't feel like weird about starting him. It's just I don't like the secondary in Miami. They don't have Kyle Van Noy. I think Wilkins is also out, so they have 2 big starters or 2 big defensive players starters on their front 7 that are out. but their secondary is still healthy, and that's tough, man. I don't know if I want to go up against that. They are pretty good. Now, they're not great. They're letting up points, so they are scoreable. That's kind of why I have them here, but they get turnovers, they get points. And so the thing with Miami is don't worry about A, starting them, and B, the points. It's kind of like Indy last night. Like any given play, they can score, and that makes their night worth it. Last night, if they didn't score, they would not have had a good night, Indianapolis, but they ended up at like 11 points, a defensive touchdown, and so forth. Miami is the number one scoring defense right now. I think them and, Steelers are like neck and neck in a way, ironically, for Minkah Fitzpatrick, right? But with that being said, guys, they do let up the 11th most points to running backs, 12th most to wide receivers, and 19th most to quarterbacks. Tight ends is where the problem is for the Chargers here. Hunter Henry, not a great matchup, but that tells me, listen, they're going to be able to at least pass and run the ball. I don't know who the running back's going to be, but that tells me Keenan Allen, you can fire up. I like Mike Williams this week, and I do still like Justin Herbert. I think he's going to be okay. Oh, by the way, if anyone didn't hear, a little note on the Chargers, Austin Eckler tweeted out, he's almost ready to go. I can't wait for that. Number 8, we have Jared Goff. Great matchup here. They're playing the Seahawks in Los Angeles, so they host them. We talked about Russell Wilson in that matchup. Jared Goff, listen, it's like kind of a different situation. He's not a guy I generally trust, but you're going up against a team that lets up the most points to quarterbacks and the most points to wide receivers. It's that simple. The matchup's too good to not have him up there. He is a top 10 matchup in my opinion. There's no one else that's a clear-cut number 8, 9, and 10 that Jared Goff shouldn't be in the top 10 this week. He could definitely screw you there, but it's the best matchup you're going to get for him, right? So Drew Brees at number 9, guys, 6,400 for him. Actually averaging more points than Jared Goff right now, but he has San Francisco. And while this game should be a dominant performance, I guess, by the New Orleans Saints, it might not be as amazing as you think. Who knows? But that being said, so many injuries here that Drew Brees needs to be in the top 10 this week as well. After a pretty decent showing last week, it just makes sense. San Francisco is decimated right now, and it's hard to project anyone against that. It's just hard. It's hard to say, okay, well, they're not going to win this. Well, listen, no offense. They just came in and they kicked the crap out of Tampa Bay. I mean, they should win this game. They could have a lull, but Drew Brees, 4 touchdowns last week. Only 222 in the air, but 26 or 32, superly efficient. 4 touchdowns for him. The team got rolling, and they didn't even need Michael Thomas. He should be healthier this week. So I do like Drew Brees as a top 10 option for you this week. Outside of that, rounding out the top 10, we have Carson Wentz in Philadelphia. Also the cheapest DFS option in our top 10, $5,900 for him, going up against the Giants. Divisional game, guys. He usually plays it pretty well. They have a lot of weapons, and they seem to be in sync now. This is probably the best we've seen. And oh, by the way, they have Miles Sanders back. So yeah, give me Carson Wentz all day in that matchup against the Giants. Alex Smith just almost threw for 300 yards against them. And if it wasn't for the interceptions, which can happen with Wentz, Smith could have had a really good game, right? So I like Carson Wentz number 10. I like him just slightly over Ben Roethlisberger in the divisional game against Cincinnati. Now, let's go to the rankings real quick for the Eagles here. Giants are pretty good in a lot of areas. One area they're weak, guys, the wide receiver. They are giving up the 10th most points to wide receivers, and that's where I like Carson Wentz this week. Really bad matchup for Goddard, but I love Fulgham. I actually really like Jalen Reagor also, but love Fulgham. He should be, I think he's pretty high on my rankings this week. And even though Carson Wentz 22nd against them, they are getting some turnovers. Their 0.9 percentage in interceptions. So they get their rate for turnover for interceptions is pretty high. One of the highest in the league. You know, to give you an idea, Tampa Bay's is at 1.2. And then Cleveland's at 0.9. Houston's at 0.3. So that's kind of like that average works. Philadelphia's at 0.4 on their end. So Giants are pretty good at getting turnovers here. That's the thing that I'm kind of curious to see if that's, somewhere where we can see some points kind of pop up on their side. They got lucky. Washington shot himself in the foot last week, but I don't think that will happen against Philly this week. I think they'll be ready to go in this divisional game. And I like Wentz at number 10. Number 11, like we said, Ben Roethlisberger. Listen, tough matchup to a degree, sort of. I mean, it's much more tougher matchup for Joe Burrow. Ben Roethlisberger going up against Cincinnati, guys, 16th ranked against quarterbacks here. So they're right in the middle of the pack, letting up around 19 points a game to quarterbacks, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns on average. So they're letting up a good amount of touchdowns. It's one of the higher TD totals that you're seeing in these rosters. That's more That's, and honestly, so are the Pittsburgh Steelers, 1.8. But long story short, guys, 2.1 is really solid. That's probably one of the highest averages I'm seeing here. 2 for Los Angeles Chargers, 2.1 for Jacksonville. So they're measuring up in some areas there that you can definitely get some things done. Now, Big Ben, I like the matchup. 16th. The running yards, you're not going to see him run as much, but they do let up a lot of points to running backs and tight ends. And they do let up the 17th most points to wide receivers. 9th, by the way, to running backs. 2nd to tight ends. So a lot of points to wide receivers, but a lot of points to running backs, a lot of points to tight ends. That means James Conner can get involved, Eric Ebron involved. But they do let up points. So I'm not too worried about that. You start Big Ben in that matchup here. There's a lot to like with the receivers healthy. You have a lot of options there. It seems like Juju's good to go. It seems like all of them are good to go. And Ben Roethlisberger, it looks like Ben is going to be activated, by the way, Saturday. So this is Friday night that we're recording. So he should be activated. It sounds like the news just broke. I'm looking right at it. So we should be all good there. Put him in your lineups at number 11. Now, number 12 is my first surprise. Tua Tagovailoa. Again, I know the average doesn't look sexy, 9.5, 5,600 on DraftKings, the cheapest of all the guys that we listed so far, and he plays the Chargers, who are letting up a lot of points to quarterbacks right now. By the way, Tua had a 20-point game last week and looked pretty darn good, had some good rushes in there, which was nice to see. And I think that could be something that he might be able to exploit. Now, let's see. So he was 20 for 28, 248, and 2 TDs last week, right? We had 7 for 35 rushing. All right. So he got some runs in there. Not terrible to see. And so he's going up against the Los Angeles Chargers, and they're letting up the 4th most points to quarterbacks right now. And they're letting up a decent amount of rushing yards, but it's really in the pass game here. 2 touchdowns they're letting up per game. So there's a lot of opportunities for the Miami Dolphins here. However, the one area the Chargers are good, guys, is their secondary with the corners that they have they lost Derwin James, right? They lost a couple guys, if I'm not mistaken. They traded Desmond King, but their secondary has still been playing really well in Los Angeles. Teams are not doing too well against them. Ranked 24th against wide receivers, only letting up around a total of 12 catches a game for 161 yards. That is not great for wide receivers. Tight end is kind of the area that's a little bit better here. In a way, I really do believe that they're going to try to shut down Devontae Parker with Preston Williams out. I do not like Parker this week, by the way, but I like Tua and I like Gesicki. I know I said it a lot, and I know it's so tiring when he doesn't do well, but I think this is that kind of week for him to kind of get involved. And I do like Jakeem Grant a little bit. I don't know if he'll be the guy to step up with the injury to Preston Williams or if someone else is going to step up. But I think that Tua will have a good game here. He'll get some good yards for you. I don't know if he'll have an amazing game, but I'm going to put him at number 12. I'm going to give the young guy a shot and see what he can do in what could be a shootout in a really good game. Rounding out the rest of the rounds here, we have Cam Newton at 13, going up against Baltimore. Middle of the pack, they're ranked. Tom Brady in a tough matchup against Carolina. Okay, Carolina is ranked 23rd against quarterbacks. Okay, so not the best matchup here. I know he has all these weapons and so forth. And listen, you have him and you need to start him, go for it. But I'm just not feeling good about it. It just doesn't seem like they're in sync yet. They might have those games, though. And it could be this week, but I just don't know. I'm not going to trust it right now over some of the other guys here. Matthew Stafford, I would have liked more if Kenny Golladay was in. And the fact that TJ Hawkinson, it sounds like Hawkinson's going to play, but the fact that he could have been out, I'm not loving Matthew Stafford against that Washington defense. I don't think they're the kind of team that's going to blow them out. Washington's been shooting themselves in the foot, and they just need to get that on track. And if they do that, that could be a bad game for Stafford. So I'm not exactly going to go out of my way, but he's at 15. Drew Lock at number 16, guys. Love the matchup here against Las Vegas. I mean, he just put up a 30-point game last week. Got a really nice rapport with Jerry Jeudy. Now, obviously, if Jeudy is out, I will probably drop him in my rankings a little bit. He would still have Tim Patrick, who is limited this week in practice. But him and Jerry Jeudy finally got that rapport. Noah Fant, by the way, is good to go in this game as well. So he has weapons. Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay. I like Drew Lock this week again against the Raiders, who are getting up the 6th most points to quarterbacks. All right, so next at 17, we have Baker Mayfield, who has a really nice matchup, guys, against Houston. You know, Jarvis Landry could be a nice option here. Listen, I want to put him higher, but I might end up moving Drew Lock and Baker Mayfield above Matthew Stafford, but that would be the highest that I would go at 15 with them. I'm still not sold on Baker. He needs to be more consistent. too many mistakes and too many times where he should be good and he's not. So I'm just going to put him at 17. He's 6,000, a little rich for my opinion on DraftKings. By the way, so is Tom Brady, 6,300. Don't like that at all. If you want a cheap option, I would say Drew Lock, 55, Tua, 56, and maybe Nick Foles. Maybe Nick Foles against Minnesota. Maybe. But anyways, Joe Burrow comes in at number 18, guys, playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not exactly the best matchup. We talked about the turnover potential here. Steelers are letting up 241 yards passing. That's not that great. Decent amount of touchdowns they do let up, but nothing that I'm really excited about for starting Joe Burrow. All that being said, though, you start the receivers in this matchup, Tyler Boyd and so forth. If they get some turnovers, could be a shootout, and it's their week. They're top 10 giving up the most points to wide receivers. So it's one of those trends that they've had for a couple of weeks now. So you start the receivers against Pittsburgh, but you try to stay away from the quarterback unless he's an elite talent. And right now, Joe Burrow, going to be good, but he's just not there quite yet. Moving right along here, guys, we have Derek Carr at number 19 against the Denver Broncos here. We talked about Drew Lock at number 16. Derek Carr is one of those guys that's in a good situation too. He goes up against the Broncos that are giving up the 9th most points to quarterbacks right now. He's been a little underwhelming though the last couple of weeks when I wanted, it's kind of like they go very run heavy and they aren't really worried about getting him touchdowns, which is okay for them, but for fantasy, it's not fun. This should be one of those matchups that could be one of those games where he does get more than 14 fantasy points. But I just can't rely on that. I mean, I would just probably start Joe Burrow in a much tougher matchup over Derek Carr this week in particular. And it's by a hair, I'll tell you that much. Alex Smith at number 20, man. Listen, he outside of the picks at the end of the game, if he can clean that up, he did look good last week. Detroit is missing some players on both sides of the ball, I believe. I don't know if they have that many injuries on defense, but listen, I'm going to give Alex Smith some benefit here, and let's see what he does at number 20. Teddy Bridgewater at 21. I'm not really going near that matchup. Tampa Bay, really tough against quarterbacks all year long. Giving up the 27th most points, or 27th most points. So they're giving up, the 5th least amount of points to quarterbacks. That's not something I want to invest in this week in particular, especially when the other area where they're soft is their tight end position, and that's not an area that Teddy Bridgewater and the Panthers use, so that doesn't excite me at all. Kirk Cousins at number 22, 6,100 here on DraftKings against the Chicago Bears. I mean, I don't know if you're going to go out of your way to start him. I mean, why am I even talking about this? Nick Foles is at number 23. Pretty cheap value here. I said it before. It could be a decent DraftKings starter. Allen Robinson should go off in this game if he can connect with him and get Mooney involved, Miller involved, and Jimmy involved. I think that he can actually have a pretty good game here this week against the Minnesota Vikings. Jake Luton at number 24, 5,400 on DraftKings. Really tough matchup. You're going up against the Packers, and they are the 25th best team against quarterbacks. The thing is, guys, or I'm sorry, the 7th best team against quarterbacks, giving up 25th most points. The problem is Jair Alexander might be out in this game, which would actually up the value of Jake Luton quite a bit, as well as DJ Chark. So keep on top of that. We'll try to update you in the descriptions, as well as on Twitter at Rise and Fall Pod. Just follow us on there, and we'll try to keep you as updated as much as possible on anything pertaining to that situation. And then rounding out the last two guys, I got Nick Mullens and Daniel Jones. I don't like Daniel Jones against Philly. I don't like Nick Mullens against New Orleans. And that's the quarterbacks. So kind of to recap here, we love our top fives. We got Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson at 4, Deshaun Watson at 5, Lamar Jackson at 6, Justin Herbert at 7, Jared Goff at 8, Drew Brees at 9, Carson Wentz at 10, Ben Roethlisberger at 11, Tua Tagovailoa at 12, Cam Newton at 13, Brady, then Stafford at 14 and 15. 16 and 17 are Lock and Mayfield. Could be some interesting DFS potential with those two guys. Joe Burrow, number 18, then Derek Carr. Good matchup for him too. So if you needed him in a desperate play this week, not a terrible play. 20 Alex Smith, if you want to take that flyer. 21 Teddy Bridgewater. 22 Kirk Cousins. 23 Nick Foles. 24 Jake Luton. 25 Nick Mullens. And 26 Daniel Jones. So with all that being said, guys, those are our quarterback rankings here for week 10. These might be a little tweaked and updated by the time that games start on Sunday based on what happens here. I try to account for the scenarios of anyone that might not be in or is out, but Ben Roethlisberger is in. Other than that, there was no situations in the quarterback area that we needed to worry about. So for that being said, guys, good luck on your matchups this week. If you guys have any questions, definitely drop a comment in the section below. We'll get back to you before game time at 1 o'clock on Sunday and make sure that you are ready to go for your lineups. And as always, the link for this companion that I am going over in these videos is in the description as well, as long as all the timestamps for your next games for the running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends coming up next.
Send the rocks across the pavement.